have enough qualifications to do what they did in teaching, and vice versa. So it was just a really big mess that first couple of years, but they did finally persevere, get one class through. 97, 98, 191 students. 98, 99, 386 students earned credit. That equals 69 FTE that year. And then in 99, 2000, 422 students earned credit. It was actually in 99 that I came to LCCC, and within the first month of being on campus, they sort of handed it over and said, here, we've got 34 students doing this, and I took over from there. But at the same time, Carol Kabeisman was doing some concurrent enrollment with academic classes, and I was doing mostly CTE at that time. So in 2000, 2001, we had a decline. The numbers dropped pretty drastically there. And we went back and looked at some of the reasons for the decline. It wasn't being promoted very well. A few of the early faculty who had supported concurrent enrollment had moved on by that time. And there was a very disorganized approach to checking prerequisites for students. So absolutely, many of the things that the naysayers said in the beginning was coming to pass. I mean, they didn't have a good enough handle on it. But in 2001, the decision was made to take all of Carol's academic courses. Those were other duties as assigned, as she used to tell me. That's how she did concurrent enrollment. And it was all placed under one office, and that would have been me. So the next year, 2001, 2002, we had 524 students who earned credit, equaling 177 FTE at that time. And then 03, 819. And then in 2003, 2004, we had over 1,000 students earn college credit, and it equaled 340 FTE at the college. Now, can you see it, Brenda?
Yeah, I'll look at my papers too.
Okay, I think that was given to you.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Anyway, why did we have such rapid growth at that time? Because the growth really was starting to go very quickly. I think the main reason was that we had an open-minded, supportive, cooperative administration, and they were willing to let us work out the bugs. They were willing to give us some time to find faculty leaders, and I will say I had a number of faculty leaders at that time who were very willing to step in and make it right. So anyway, that brings us up to that point, but we'll move on to more current history now. And if you would like to have a copy of this year's numbers, Ed has copies of those over there. So this year we had 1,253 students who earned either concurrent enrollment credit or dual enrollment credit. And others, that is not the total number of high school students, by the way, who earned credit on the campus. And I'll say more about that in just a minute. The next thing I would like to do is define for you the use of these terms.
Brenda, would you give me those numbers again?
Sure.
The current ones?
Ed's going to give them to you right there. He's bringing you this year's numbers. Sure. There are three ways that a high school student can earn credit at LCCC. They can earn credit through concurrent enrollment, through dual credit, and through Jump Start. Concurrent enrollment takes place on a high school campus in an approved course with an approved faculty member, and that credit is the LCCC course being taught at the high school campus, and the student earns credit both in the high school and at the college. That's concurrent enrollment. A few years ago, the state asked us to settle down and use the same terminology so across Wyoming, that is concurrent enrollment. Dual credit is when a student comes to LCCC, takes a course, now by state legislation, that is any junior or senior or any other high school student with the permission of a high school official. So even some 9th and 10th graders can take advantage of this if they're in that mode and that quality. They are earning credit at LCCC. Of course, it's going on an LCCC transcript, but it's also going back to their high school for graduation requirement purposes. And as we are a right to education state, the student doesn't pay anything for that dual credit. And here at LCCC, students can take one class the fall of their junior year, one class the spring of their junior year. one class the fall and spring of their senior year. So those are all dual credit options for students in our service area. Across the state it's a little bit different, but this is just what LCCC has.
Brenda,
Yes, sir.
somebody, why the limit on that?
Because that money comes from us and from their student's school district. We share the cost of that tuition that student's earning.
So the college and the districts put those parameters limited to one per semester?
That's right. And in fact, we used to have, for example, out at District 2, they allowed two, they negotiated with the college, with Marlene, and they used to be able to have two their senior year in the fall and two their senior year in the spring. Well, when the state said juniors and seniors, and that was in 2010, it would have become really prohibitive for us if we had started paying for it, because we pay the tuition part for all of those students who are taking dual credit and Jumpstart.
If a student chooses to do more than that, can they do that at their own cost?
They can. Anything beyond that, and many students self-fund in addition to what they're being given. I didn't do the percentages, but I'd say at least between a third and a half of the students that come in to take courses that are being paid for in some form by us also fund another class.
So you have a question?
Yes.
Brenda, is the cost of the education split between the school district and the college for just dual enrollment, or also concurrent enrollment?
Concurrent enrollment is what we call now, at the moment, a wash. We bill each individual school district for the tuition amount of any credit that has been earned by their students in that semester. That's the $75, no fees, just the amount of the tuition. The school districts then turn around, prepare a bill for us to exactly the same amount, to the penny, billing us for the use of the teacher, the use of the classroom, the textbooks, those kind of things. And so that precedes me. So that's been over 14 years that we've been doing it that way. And what they told me was that the accountants like that method of doing it, because we are billing for something. They actually write us a check, and then at the same time they bill us and we write them a check. That's the way it happens. Okay? Now, that's for concurrent enrollment. That's when it's being taught on their campus. And there are no fees associated with that because it's on a different campus.
Okay.
Dual credit, on the other hand, is we pay the $75 worth of tuition for the students to take one class, but then we actually bill the school district for the fees, and the school districts write us a check for the fees straight across.
Okay.
Right, that one is not a wash.
Okay.
That one is actually income to the college. And then Jumpstart is the third way that a student can earn credit, and that is for any student who's met all of his or her high school graduation requirements, and so therefore there's no room for a dual credit class. But because the intent of the legislation is for students to get a head start on college and start building that college transcript and working on a career pathway, then we actually pay the tuition portion, and the student or his or her family pays the fees and the textbooks for one class. That's if we don't have something that will fall into dual credit. Then it goes to Jumpstart. One class per semester. John?
I don't want to get ahead of you, but is that why you
Okay.
have vote sheets? When we pass the colleges, uses all their vote sheets
Every part of the state has vote sheets by us.
for. Well, I know, but I'm
And that's-
confused.
Yes, sir, that's part, that's.
No, we're the only one that does.
Yes, sir. Okay, so that is the definition of it. State laws, there are two state laws that pertain to what we do, and the first one is the Wyoming Post-Secondary Options Law that I mentioned that was signed in '94. And student participation and success, you've got the handouts from the institutional research. And then the benefits of concurrent enrollment, and these are benefits of the concurrent enrollment program for students, and that's actually more of a dual enrollment program. But it motivates students to, we hope, a more productive and meaningful senior year. I have a lot of students who are on the campus, 200 or so a semester, who are taking classes out here under a dual or jump start. And I have students come in on a daily basis and say, I'm only taking 2 classes, or I'm only taking 3 classes, and I really need, I've got plenty of time and I need to take advantage of being able to take another college class. So we're trying to eliminate that idea of that wasted senior year, and we're certainly not doing it across the board, but we're reaching more and more students every year. Another thing is something that Dr. Boland mentioned to me as he was leaving, and it has proved to be a really good idea for a lot of students. That is that they get rid of those remediation needs prior to coming to LCCC. And we do have a number of students who use their Jump Start status, not their dual credit, because it's not a college level number, so it's not going to go back on their high school credit, but they can use that Jump Start status and get some of those remediation classes out of the way before they come. I don't worry about that as juniors. They still have another 2 years of high school. If they're at a remediation level then, that's not surprising for many of them. But if at the beginning of the year they still don't have ACT scores, at least a 21 across the board, we start talking about remediation before they start talking about a class that they'd rather have. So if you're going to go to college, you need to get this out of the way. And then another one thing that's really close to my heart is the fact that we hope that these programs will motivate students to, number one, choose a career pathway, get a career focus, and then start earning credits that will go toward the completion of a degree in that area. In fact, I've recommended a number of times to some of the CTE programs that while these students are in high school, they're already in the mode of math and English and things like that, and those are the courses that sometimes stop them from finishing the associate's degree in things like diesel or something like that. They don't want to take math and English if they've been away from it for a couple of years. Let's get those out of the way in the beginning, and then they'll be much more poised to get the degree. Another advantage of these programs is that we have, I don't know if we have as many now, but a few years ago we had quite a few credit-heavy majors on campus. And I remember when Microsoft had something like 78 credits or something for Microsoft, and we were, how in the world can you possibly complete that many credits? So at the time we had some credit-heavy ones, and that will help a student get some of those credits out of the way, loosen their load just a little bit, or even compete for a double major. And that's another good use of these courses. Another benefit is for the college instructors to become familiar with the secondary curricula and the standards in their content area, and vice versa. So often we don't have people talking across that graduation divide in the same subject content, in the same content areas, and they should be. It's one thing for students to come to the college and have instructors say, well, they didn't learn what they were supposed to in high school. Well, if we check sometimes, the high school teacher didn't know what the requirements were at the college, and so, but when they do, when there's a dialogue there, those gaps can be closed. Better prepared students, I remember when the internet program was getting a number, they couldn't fill the advanced classes in the internet design until they started doing concurrent enrollment in the high schools, and then they'd have half a dozen students a year come in ready to take the more advanced classes. So it was actually helping to fill some of the advanced classes, and I haven't tracked any of that lately, but I know that that was happening at one time. FTE is pretty nice on concurrent enrollment, as you can see if you're looking at the sheet there. And then the other thing is we have a lot of parents who come in with their students, and I field probably 50 phone calls a week from parents. I meet with 200 to 300 students and their parents a year in my office. And these parents, for the most part, I'm talking really for the most part, are very, very complimentary about LCCC, about the instructors, about the things that we're doing. And when it comes time to vote and we want their goodwill, that's a good way to have promoted it and shown that we are definitely on their side too. That leads me to NASEP. NASEP is the National Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships. It is the only accrediting body in the nation for concurrent enrollment programs. Up until last year, I think the number was about 66. There were 66 schools across the country who had accredited concurrent enrollment programs. Most of those were four-year universities. Last year, another 22 schools acquired accreditation, and that was really a big deal. A number of those were community colleges. They were big community colleges, though. And I've been a member of NASEP now for 5 or 6 years and have been attending the national conference every year. So we are using the NASEP standards of excellence in most of the standards that they recognize. Now, I'll get to the accreditation piece in just a minute, but telling you a little bit more about NACEP, it ensures that the college courses, I should say NACEP's accreditation does, but NACEP itself wants to ensure that college courses that are offered by high school teachers are as rigorous as courses offered on the sponsoring college campus. As I've heard said at the NACEP conference a number of times, their goal is not to award credit for high school classes. That's not NACEP's goal. Their goal is to actually have courses that are the same class as the college class. Now, are we there yet? Definitely not 100%, but we make more progress every year. And this year we're making a lot of progress, and I'll get to that in just a minute too.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
How serious are they about that? There's some of these accrediting agencies that for a long time were pretty lax in their oversight. Have these guys ever unaccredited anyone?
Oh, very definitely. The ACREP team that came, who met with us, she had just, what state was she from? Do you remember? Idaho or Iowa? Is that what you, okay. They just mandated that all of their concurrent enrollment programs in the state be accredited, and she's over, I can't remember the number of schools now, but 3 of her schools did not make it going through the accreditation process twice. So all the rest of hers did, but she said she had 3 schools that went through the accreditation process twice and could not acquire accreditation. So if that answers your question, there are a lot of schools that don't make accreditation. In fact, I've even built in an extra year for us, because if we can't make it after the second time, I don't know, it's going to probably take somebody else to do it.
What's the timeline on this?
Well, you're evaluated on the accreditation packet you submit for 1 year. This year is our dry run year. There are 17 NACEP standards, and we probably meet the standards easily in maybe 10 of those. The others, we've got some evaluation pieces to put in place, some assessment pieces to put in place, and things like that. But this year, we're trying to get all of that in place. So next year, if we're successful this year, next year will be the year 13-14 that I submit in January of 15 for accreditation. If we're not accredited that spring, because that's when they usually let you know by April if you've been accredited, then we're working on that year, 14-15, and we'll submit in January of 16. And that'll be my last shot at it, Kevin. So at that point, if we haven't managed accreditation by then the pieces will have to be knitted together, by somebody else at that point. But I think we can do it. I really do. I think the faculty is some more enthusiastically than others, but I think the faculty is definitely picking up the standard also. And I have a meeting over in Laramie, Lynn, I think you know that, on Tuesday afternoon with about 20 people over in Laramie. And some of them are going to be happy to hear about the changes, and some of them aren't going to be happy. They've already let me know that.
The accreditation here, it affects both sides, the high school and the college.
Well, it's our program that is accredited, but they have to adhere to our requirements in order for us to achieve accreditation. Correct. Mm-hmm. And there will be some casualties. There will be, I know that.
I'd like to see the bodies.
You'd like to see the bodies? Okay. Well, I'll let you know if there are any. Okay. Anyway, the other thing that NACEP does is shares the latest best practices, research, and advocacy. Our Adam Lowe, who is the executive director of NACEP right now, or the executive secretary, I think is his title, is absolutely, that man has information from all over the country. He's just like an Energizer bunny when it comes to this stuff, and he knows all of the legislation. He's always on Capitol Hill, and he's an excellent resource if any of you ever have those kinds of questions that I can run through Adam. He came here, by the way, in January of 11. Some of you may have met him when we had the statewide concurrent enrollment forum here at LCCC in February of 11. Anyway, then the third thing is the last thing is that NACEP does have a conference every year. This year, we just got the notice today, our conference in Seattle has more than 100 more than it's ever had before. And they're over 450 now. They've stopped, and that's huge for what NACEP was. As I said, it was mostly 4-year universities, and So the accreditation, you should have a copy, I think, of this, of the standards for accreditation. They're divided into 5 categories: curriculum, faculty, student, assessment, and program evaluation. And what I've told the instructors is that I gave them folders with, or excuse me, notebooks with only 3 folders in it, because our instructors need to only worry about 3 things. That's curriculum, that is assessment, and faculty. So those 3 things are in the purview, the jurisdiction, whatever, of our faculty. And so it's how they do those things that will determine our status for accreditation. However, the other things that we have, student, I have checked prerequisites religiously. That's one of the main things. We must transcript grades. We've always transcripted grades. All the years I've been here, we never had that, what we used to call garbage credit, where you had to come and get another 12 credits before you could have the 3 that you earned in high school. That just never made any sense to anybody, and that is not an acceptable way of awarding credit, according to NASEP. Program evaluation, Anne Murray has just been awesome. She's been helping me with that. And the surveys go to students the first year out of high school. The active students the first year out of high school, and then we have to track them 4 years after high school, which is one thing for universities, but it's something else for community college. But Anne and I are going to give it our best shot. We also survey teachers, the secondary teachers, principals, counselors, and advisors. And all of that goes into, all of that goes into our accreditation package, all of those surveys and the results. So, let's see. Accreditation is awarded after a comprehensive peer review by a team of experienced representatives of NASEP accredited institutions. We conduct a self-study, prepare an accreditation application with evidence documenting how the college or university implements the 17 national standards for program quality, and there are the areas. Accreditation serves as a guarantee to students, to policymakers, and other post-secondary institutions when students want to transfer these credits, that the program does meet rigorous national standards. And I'll tell you, before the standards were revised, they were written in 09, they were revised in 11. Before they were written, we could have walked through an accreditation process back in 09. There was that much difference in what the standards were in 09 and what the standards are now. And now, like I said, I've even built in an extra year hoping that we don't need it. But so they were greatly revamped. Kevin, that might answer part of your question too. They were hugely made much more difficult to achieve. And then distinguishes a concurrent enrollment partnership, enhancing its ability to recruit new partners to it, and it aids families and students when they seek credit recognition at other schools. So, if you have any questions for me on that, the last thing I'm going to move to is to bring Mary Ellen back up to you. Would anybody like to know what our total financial amount was for the last 2 years? No, you don't care? Okay. Well, for 2010, 2011, between the wash amount and the amount that we paid and that the districts paid for dual enrollment, that was $224,284. That was in 2010, 2011. Last year, for 2011, 2012, that amount was $328,269. So
That's our expenses for that?
that is what the program costs
Oh, the
in
program
terms
costs.
of credit and so on.
So
that's-
okay, combination of us and Laramie.
Laramie, Albany.
Okay.
That's right, right. And then, yes, sir.
You need to be clear on that.
Okay.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
Okay, the first amount, the largest amount, and I'm coming off the top of my head, but it's pretty close,
Go ahead.
is the wash amount that we billed for tuition, and then the districts turn around and billed us for the use of the classroom, the teacher, and the textbooks, okay? That first amount in 10-11 was a little over $171,000. Okay. Then the dual credit amount in that year was $53,000.
So the wash amount is a zero.
It wouldn't have to be, but it is at the
No,
moment.
I'm just saying, that's what it is.
Correct.
It's zero. In concurrent enrollment, we receive tuition. Or dual credit.
In dual credit, we receive fees for. No, not.
So it's about 50 grand.
I'm just saying what the program costs because.
But there isn't a cost. If you've got a cost going out and one coming in,
Okay,
the
but
cost to us is zero.
the cost to us is, well, I don't know. Stan, you want to address that one?
Well, and that's a good point, and I was mentioning that to Brenda. Yes, in terms of the wash, so for concurrent enrollment, which is yes, that's the dollar amount, but it is the amount that we bill and then reimburse in the district too. It's a wash. What isn't a wash is the time of Brenda Abbott, of the faculty that are required to participate and coordinate and do that, and all of the other things that happen behind the scenes here that people see to make this program run and click. And that is not a wash. That is, for the most part, carried by the campus. It's a great service and a great partnership and a program. But those are other real costs that aren't connected to that exchange of direct costs of educating students. Is that fair?
That's absolutely correct. That's right. And if they were paying, the students were paying for that credit, the credit that those students have earned, that is what we would have seen, is $328,000 for this year. If that were not converted enrollment, if that were just any other students.
It's still confused. It's not confusing to me. I think that, I mean, all that I'm looking at is what's the in and the out and what's the net of that. You're giving me one side of it and not the other side.
And I'm sorry that the reason for that is because we're the only ones in the state who have that particular situation where it is a wash. And I'm going to turn that over to Mary Ellen to talk about. There you go, Mary.
Okay, before we do though, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Tracy Kinney has joined us. Dr. Kinney is the Assistant Superintendent of Instruction from Laramie County School District 1, and she has been instrumental in our collaborative partnership. So thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Kinney. Also, I wanted to touch briefly on some of the other collaborative efforts that we have going on with our school districts right now, and I'll just kind of give you a 30,000-foot view because I know we're running out of time here. But besides our Gear Up program, which I know you're all familiar with, a lot of other things that we have going on include working with the school districts on career exploration, career coaching, and transitional advising, utilizing something called career pathway templates. And Ed Olson, very kindly, I had printed off an example of a career pathway template, which I'm going to ask him to share with everybody here. This career pathway template was developed in a grant opportunity between Laramie County School District Number 1 and LCCC, and it was funded by the Wyoming Department of Education and Perkins Funding. And basically what this template does is it provides a seamless transition for high school students from 9th grade through grade 14 to look at maximize their experiences with their high school education and their college education, and maximize opportunities with dual and concurrent enrollment. And basically these templates have been developed, as I said, in a joint partnership between secondary and post-secondary, and with our LCCC faculty and quality checked by our deans here. And they're posted on the LCCC website if you're interested in looking at them, because over 100 of these templates have been now developed and can be utilized in career coaching, career exploration, and transitional advising. Transitional advising is when Brenda Abbott and her team goes into the high schools, and she works with high school students, over 300 a year, I believe it is, and helping them look at the career pathways that were selected in their career exploration, and look at some opportunities for maximizing their college and high school experiences. Just a very brief story on that is I have a good friend who just was hired with a CPA firm here in town, and I was talking to her about her concurrent experience and transitional advising with her, and a perfect example is this is a 4.0 student who carried very high grades all throughout her educational pathway. She was someone who had her eyes set on UW. But through transitional advising, she identified some LCCC courses that she could take while she was still in high school. So she was able to maximize those courses while in high school and continue on at UW. So she became an LCCC student in high school, continue on to UW, and complete her bachelor's and her master's degree and testing for her CPA within 5 years. So that's just one example how these career pathways and the seamless transition and transitional advising can aid in student success. Another example is a study that was just recently done for at-risk youth out of California. We're looking at a study that was done with the Community College Research Center and youth, looking at career pathways, career exploration, dual and concurrent enrollment activity for at-risk youth, showed that these at-risk youth that were part of the study over 3 years continued on to four-year institutions at a higher rate than their peers. And interestingly enough, these same students exceeded their transition from first year to second year in the college than their peers. And they also carried a larger course load. So there's a lot to be said about this whole package. It's not just concurrent and dual enrollment. It's career pathways being identified through career exploration and career coaching. And so it's really a package, not just an individual program of concurrent and dual enrollment. I did want to emphasize that. So when we're talking about the partnership, we're talking about more. They were a couple of the partnerships for seamless transitioning from secondary to post-secondary. Some of the other partnerships that we have with the school district include the Partnership Diploma Program, which very briefly is an at-risk program that focuses on learning as being the constant, time being the variable, and these students are put on an IEP, and these are at-risk students that are at risk of dropping out of school, but through individual education plans, not only are able to earn their high school diploma, but also gain the college and career readiness skills to succeed as they move on. And then some other partnerships that I'm sure you're very well aware of, and those are things like the career fairs and going into the schools and doing career exploration through some of our CTE programs that are happening here. And so there's a lot going on with secondary education right now. But again, we're limited by the funding that we have. So we have visions and we've had discussions about additional services that could be offered for secondary students for that seamless transition from secondary to post-secondary, and things like career academies and building and increasing dual and concurrent and jumpstart opportunities for our students, and professional development opportunities for our educators, and expanding career exploration and career coaching for the reasons why I just explained. And so these are some additional things that we would love to see initiated in our region that limited funding prevents us for. However, these are things that are happening throughout the state right now, and they're happening through a funding source called Boards of Cooperative Higher Educational Services, or Boards of Cooperative Educational Services, BOCES or BOCHES. And basically this is taken from the Northeast Wyoming BOCHES, and basically what they do is they offer those expanded educational services that we can't traditionally offer through our current funding sources. And they also provide sources that can be done more effectively collaboratively through multiple districts, whether it be secondary, post-secondary, or 2 districts, whatever would be decided would be effective. The Boards of Cooperative Educational Services Act, which should be provided, you should have a copy of that in your board packets, provides a method whereby school districts and community college districts, or any combination, may together provide educational services limited to post-secondary education, vocational, technical education, adult education, and services with children with disabilities, just to name a few of the areas that we're seeing happening around the state for those expanded services. And basically the way these work, and I need to stop here and preface what I'm about to say, BOCES and BOCHES, we're not subject, neither Brenda nor I are subject matter experts on these. So I want to just pause a minute and tell you that right up front. But we work in ancillary positions with a lot of these organizations throughout the state, and we talked to a number of the directors over the last couple of days to find out exactly what's happening with these. So while we're painting a 30,000-foot view for you, if it's something that you're interested in learning more about, we were offered from a number of the directors in the state, they're more than willing to come, if you want to explore them further, to come and talk to you. As a matter of fact, one of the more foremost experts in the state, Sandy Barton, who works with the Fremont County BOCES, is going to be down here at the end of September, and she said if you all are are interested, or Dr. Schaefer, if you are interested, she'd be more than happy to come by and give you some more detailed information from someone who was one of the first people to start a BOCES or initiate a BOCES in our state. So basically, the Board of Cooperative Education Acts, 2 or more boards of trustees come together for providing, the purpose of providing cooperative educational services if the services can be provided more effectively through a cooperative effort. Now, what I tried to do here was just, this is not all the BOCES and BOCHES in the state, but I do want to paint a picture of all the many activities that are happening in the state because of these. And they vary from CTE trainings and to Natrona County, where you've got Jumpstart to College, the Adult Learning Center, the Casper Mountain Science School, robotics, UW Casper College educational programs, to something as varied as over in Powell Valley Community Education BOCES. They're expanding their community education options through a BOCES. So there are many different facets of a BOCES. One of the things that the BOCHES have in common, however, and this gets back to the concurrent and dual enrollment discussion, is they provide funding to expand concurrent and dual enrollment and jumpstart opportunities for our students. Now, a BOCES, the BOCHES, the H in BOCHES is Board of Cooperative Higher Educational Services. And so what I did was I picked out 3 BOCHES in our state that are just a little bit different from each other. And I wanted just to kind of show you the difference between these 3. Carbon County Higher Education Center BOCHES over there in Rollins. I don't know if you all have been over there, but they're doing some phenomenal things over there. They're using their BOCHES funding for ABE and GED, concurrent enrollment, dual enrollment, career and technical education, distance learning, workforce training, and continuing education opportunities. So they're really maximizing their services over in Rollins. As compared to Northeast Wyoming BOCHES, and one of the strong areas that they're doing over there are career academies. And there's some great career academies happening in our state right now. Northeast Wyoming BOCHES is doing one. And then Fremont County BOCHES, that's a little bit different. That's happening through Central Wyoming College being the lead, with all of those school districts involved. And their primary focus is a robust funding of concurrent, dual, and jumpstart classes. So this does provide funding opportunities for a myriad of additional services in our region. So that just kind of gives a quick paintbrush view, and I tried to rush through this because I know we're running out of time, of other secondary, post-secondary partnerships that could be done in our state, and a possible funding source to be able to do these partnerships. So, and this is an example of the Northeast Wyoming BOCHES homepage, and you can just see that they offer scholarships, additional college-to-school activities, career academies, and technical education. And when I say career academies, they actually have to, the career academies up there have to apply for grants through their BOCHES to help support equipment and the like. So we provided a lot of information tonight, and I do apologize, I've rushed through my piece because I know it's running so late. But that funding source would have to be something that the board would have to scrutinize and look at more carefully. And of course, that would come with issues, challenges, and concerns. And again, I want to put out to you that while we're not the state subject matter experts on it, if you do have any further questions, I would ask you to please not hesitate to give Brenda or I a call, or we would be happy to connect you with some of the experts in the state. And if you are interested in visiting with Sandy Barton when she comes down at the end of the month, she put out that open invitation for you. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any final questions.
You mentioned that we could send the entire law electronically if anyone wants to request it. We have that. It's 12 pages. The Wyoming state law. You have it? Okay, good. Okay. We weren't sure how much they were going to be able to
Let me speak into my, I'm sorry, let me speak into my speaker because I say we have a somewhat tight time schedule, but I will tell you, I'm in the mood to take a little time to chat about this. It's been on my mind for a while. I know it's been on several other people's minds for a while. And I guess you generated some questions in our mind, and let me get a couple simple ones out of the way. One is, what does this mean to Laramie County Community College in terms of FTE per year?
Well, that's a really hard question. I mean, it would mean expanding the concurrent and dual enrollment opportunities, and I'm going to defer.
I'm looking for a number.
Well, right now, we're have, what, 5,000 credits divided, what was the FTE? Over 400 FTE? Over 400 is what it is now.
And what's our FTE, Joe? Combined.
500, what's our annual FTE?
3,500, so we're talking 1/7 of the FTE at our college.
The one time we.
Which I just want to point that out, that this is a big issue to us.
It is,
Okay.
right. Which is why I was giving you the numbers earlier, but I didn't
Yeah.
want to.
Well, and some of the, I appreciate the numbers and all that kind of stuff, but I'm trying to figure out what's really important to us. Because FTE says a couple of things, and the obvious one is some type of funding, but the other one is resources that we have to put into, or that we need, or that we're required to provide the services.
And the FTE is only going to go up because you're not going to lose the FTE on any students. The FTE remains the same.
Well, I guess you could say it's gonna go up. I think the other side of that coin is I think, in my mind right now, and we kind of take a look at some other areas of the college too, is what are we doing and what should we be doing? You know, so I can't answer that question if it's gonna go up or not. I can tell you in my own opinion, I think a lot of effort should go into this concurrent enrollment from our side, and it's unfortunate that, and I've been on the board for 8 years and I've never had a discussion about it. So, and it's not your fault, it's maybe our fault for not pushing the button on that. So, a couple other kind of basic questions when you explain the type of programs. Concurrent enrollment, let me just try to verify. Concurrent enrollment is when a college course is held at the high school, taught by a high school employee.
That's correct.
Okay. Dual enrollment is when a student comes to our campus and sits in a class with a LCCC Board. Okay. Those are the basic two types, right? Your startup is the same thing as dual, right? The same animal.
Except that we don't know the district.
We don't do it.
Right.
Okay. Okay. All right, that helps me out. Let me just ask this question. On these concurrent enrollment classes, is it just strictly kids that are in the college course that are in that room, or is it, you got 10 kids taking concurrent enrollment, 10 kids taking the high school class?
It varies right now.
So the answer is yes.
It varies. It varies.
No, the
It can be
answer is
both.
yes.
Some are completely credit earning students.
Okay.
Many of the classes, particularly the CTE classes are. Some of the academic classes are not, because a student needs a 27 on the ACT in math to earn the calculus
Okay,
credit.
so give me a good example here. I'm taking an English course.
Okay. If you don't have a 21 in English and a 21 in reading on your ACT, you can't earn the college credit, even if you're in that classroom.
But they're both sitting in the same classroom.
There's the same class is being taught.
I'm trying to understand that, and I'm going to throw this over to Kevin because he's tried to explain it to me and I don't understand it yet. Go ahead, Kevin.
How in the world do you mix students in the same class and some are earning college credit and some are earning high school credit? Is that not what you're saying?
No, I'm saying they're teaching our English 1010 class. And the students who are in that English 1010 class are still getting the high school credit.
Who is they in this case? Is this the high school teacher?
A high school teacher is teaching it.
They're teaching our 1010 course.
Correct.
The high school is teaching.
That's correct.
And there are students mixed in the class that are earning only high school credit along with students who are earning college credit.
Because their ACT scores were not high enough to have the college credit, to earn the college credit. They're taking the same class.
It doesn't make sense.
Hasn't the
Well, we have a
commission had a
prerequisite.
problem with this though, about mixing these students in these classes?
No, actually, it first came on the radar this year with HLC, and I heard there was quite a lively discussion back in April. Was anybody at the HLC meeting in April in Chicago, I think? That concurrent enrollment hit the radar there. And the general consensus in the room, according to Joe McCann and some of the others who were there, was that the HLC felt that it should be at least 50% of the students in the classroom should be earning college credit. that as long as at least 50% were, they didn't have a problem. That's where the conversation went this year.
And I only bring this up because I think that there are some other, at least, things that we think about in that is, and I think what Kevin is alluding to is we supposedly are giving college credit for these, and then these kids don't. Do they have to perform differently? I mean, that's what I'm trying to
They have to meet the
understand.
prerequisites.
I'm talking about being in the
They're
class.
auditing. They're auditing.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to
They're
say.
auditing.
It'd be no different than a regular class on campus, and you have people auditing the class. Is that a fair way
That
to
is
look at it?
exactly what
Okay.
it is.
Because I can just tell you, and I'm pretty dang sensitive to it, about the quality of the classes that we're issuing credit. And again, there is just potential to dilute the quality, don't you think?
Not if they're auditing it. But that puts a whole different spin on it, right?
Why?
You're thinking, when you first looked at it, it looked like you have high school students getting high school credit and other students getting college credit.
Right.
But if the high school students are only taking it for an audit and are getting no grade for it.
An audit as far as the college is concerned.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't know why the commission did, because every class, almost every class, has somebody auditing it, just because they want to.
Okay. And again, I'm trying to understand how that works.
And then when that,
I am glad to see, and I probably would like a follow-up on your barriers to getting accredited with, where is that little group here? NASAC. I think their standards are what we're looking for.
Well, they sound like,
They sound like.
and I don't wanna rub salt in old wounds, but what you're talking about with this accreditation is what I tried to get here for years. And a certain administrator, who doesn't have to be mentioned any longer here, fought me tooth and nail on it. It wasn't gonna have anything to do with this. But now you're telling me that the faculty have a lot to do with looking at curriculum, and looking at the quality of instructors that are providing curriculum in high school.
well, they're responsible for training those instructors. They're not responsible for hiring them, but they are responsible for mentoring them.
But let me bring up one other thing. And this occurred because of physics concurrent enrollment. You know, we played this game for a long time, and we found out that the high school teachers had no application materials on file at the college for a long time, just as our adjuncts would have to have, and that was something that was missed. And then many of these people, they didn't come anywhere close to a bachelor's plus 18 hours. They didn't come close to a bachelor's degree in the subject area. And I finally got to the point where I wouldn't sign the agreements any longer. And what I worked out with Central High School was, have your students take the AP exam. And if they get a 3, 4, or 5 on it, they get college credit. You know, it's just that easy to prove that they've gotten the coursework that shows that they were operating at the college level. And people just fought me tooth and nail on that, like it was some sort of crazy idea. Well, what's crazy about it?
Well, I'm a former AP English teacher too. 9 years I taught AP English. AP English curriculum and English 1010 curriculum are actually quite different. Juan Antonio wrote today, the AP Spanish curriculum and the 1010 curriculum, 1020 curriculum here are quite different. And so we are moving away from allowing Spanish and French credit for the AP curriculum, because that's another sore point kind of with the NASEP accreditation. They are not accrediting AP courses unless the AP course is identical to the college course. So the AP curriculum should stand alone, should remain separate for students who are going out of state, who are going to other universities and who need the transferability of AP credit. That should be there. But the 1010 credit really belongs, we were looking, there's 5 years, we've had 5 years of Spanish and French and German before a student could get 1010 and 1020 credit, but they were basically awarding credit for AP classes. And that is not in line with NASEP accreditation. Now it has to be our 1010 course that is in that high school. The student can come in at any point if they want to into that 1010 class and earn the 1010 credit.
And if
So
I,
AP and concurrent enrollment really are different.
And if I could jump in 1 second and just address very specifically some of the things you're asking, Kevin. First of all, our faculty that the high school teachers that are teaching our courses now require to have the same faculty qualifications as our new policy, the new policy that was just approved here. And that's something that we're working towards, having that exact same policy followed for our concurrent enrollment instructors, number one. Number two, if you look at the NASEP standards, in the classroom itself, and Ms. Gray may address what you're asking about, even if it's mixed with 10-10 students and non-10-10 students, the content of that curriculum has to align content and assessment-wise with what's being delivered on this campus. So you have students receiving that are required to receive the exact same content, whether they're getting credit for it or not. And so I think those are two key pieces that we need to look at, especially considering the fact that NASEP requires that, and that's the reason why we're going after this NASEP accreditation. To help, well, nothing is a guarantee. I mean, I'm going to come right out and say nothing will be a guarantee. It's going to help enforce that standardizing, that consistency. And the other piece to this too is that part of that NASEP accreditation is empowering our faculty to decertify an instructor if they aren't teaching to those standards. So if our instructor goes in and sees that the same content, the same assessment is not being delivered to their satisfaction, then they have the ability through NASEP, the NASEP accreditation to decertify that teacher from teaching it. Now with that being said, I would highly encourage our faculty to work with them to bring up the standards of that course. We don't want to lose a great opportunity like that for our students. However, I think it's important to note that's the whole point of the NASEP accreditation.
But here's one thing I'm just going to then ask. You've got the high school physics teachers don't come anywhere near a bachelor's degree in physics. Don't come anywhere near. How are you going to make them qualified to the same level as our adjuncts? How are you going to do that?
And that's a very good point, Kevin. And if they don't qualify to the same level as our adjuncts, then we're not going to be able to deliver the course. It's that simple.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Okay. Well, and again, and I don't want you to get the wrong impression. I'm sitting here looking at your benefits of concurrent enrollment. And I guess there's a big long list and everything on there is good. I want to see that happen. And I want to see some, and we'll focus our efforts on it if we can. And it looks like you have the tool to do it with. I guess what I'm anxious is crank it up. Let's get this done and let's figure out what the roadblocks are. And I want my kid to have the opportunity to do this, and I want him to learn, and I want him to get ahead. And I think we ought to be doing that in cooperation and not trying to fight each other. And I'll probably ask Dr. Kinney to give us a little of her thoughts on concurrent enrollment here in what's going on right now. So I'm really a proponent of it. And I can tell you one of the reasons why I'm a proponent of it, because it promotes our college. It promotes what we can do. And also, it's something that we're giving back to the community. And we need to do that. And we need to get our efforts focused on that. So I don't really want to be negative, but we're talking a little bit about some rules and things that ought to be in place. And if there's a tool there, I want to make sure that we move towards that. And then also, and obviously we'll have this discussion. We'll see how bad we want to do it, and how it fits into our total scope of what our mission is here at college. So, Kevin, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm a proponent of doing it, but if it's not done right, it's not a benefit to the students, it's not a benefit to the district, and it's not a benefit to LCCC. And that's the bottom line. It has to be done right, and that was always my argument with people when I was here about how this thing was administered and what actually took place in the high school.
Kevin, the only right that we can quantify, I guess, is the NASEP or the NASEP standards. It's the only accrediting body in the country. And so, and now that we have those standards, and like I said, in 2009, those standards weren't nearly what they are now. In 2011, when those standards were rewritten, those standards now are the quality program that we would all like to see.
In 2009, we weren't even meeting our own internal standards.
We didn't have...
No, we had standards for adjuncts. and we weren't achieving those.
Oh, that's what you mean, yes, that's what, I understand.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just like,
Yeah.
just real briefly, I mean, that's the whole purpose of this conversation tonight, is I know we are guided and skewed by the past at the college. I know there are things that we're not fond of about the way we did things. We've grown, we've learned, we're improving. But the intent of this conversation is to illustrate that many of the concerns that continue to come up and come up and come up, and I've chased many of these down myself numerous times now, we are taking purposeful steps to addressing them with the minimum faculty qualifications policy we've been looking at, them, haven't we, Dr. John? Going through and bringing compliance in. With NASEP, we're getting at those issues that ensure that the coursework taught as part of concurrent enrollment is indeed our coursework. Same assessment, same outcomes. We're preparing and coordinating those teachers to do that. It's to illustrate that we've heard concerns and we're trying to move in the right direction so that we can scale a quality educational product in partnership with the school districts, and we feel strongly about it. That's really the intent of this presentation tonight, is to illustrate that we believe we're on the right path, and we're trying to give you that assurance that we are on the right path and making great strides. By the way, we'll be the first campus in Wyoming to pursue these standards.
That's right.
Correct, and we already have higher standards than the other 6 colleges in regards to the monitoring and the delivery of concurrent enrollment. So,
Well, yes, and for example, the qualifications of the faculty. The state decided 5 years to be compliant, ours is 3. So,
Yeah.
we've raised the bar at every point.
we appreciate that, but I just wanted to stress that is the intent of this presentation, to make us aware of what we are doing.
Yes, sir.
You said the state, is that the commission or DOE?
Actually, it was it's the commission. The commission's been heavily involved in a lot of this. Joe McCann is the representative at all of the YSEP meetings, and he keeps, all of us report now our data to the Wyoming Community College Commission, and that was not done up until last year. That's the first time it's ever been reported even. But now, because of the law being changed in 2010, we are now reporting our numbers. We are now on, our VPs are all working together. Our VPs, our academic affairs, are working together to set the same standards. And so we've reached a level of compliance that I never thought we would reach. That was just personal observation. I just said, well, I don't know if we can do this, but we have statewide. But we will be the first, if we can acquire accreditation, we'll be the first to even attempt it.
Dr. Kinney, could I ask you to just kind of give us your state of concurrent enrollment from your perspective?
Well, I think,
Yeah, probably need to go to the microphone.
Well, I certainly agree with Mary Allen's advocacy for improving concurrent enrollment with the teacher qualifications, and I personally appreciate pursuing the standards and the accreditation process, because it puts all of us then in the limelight of sharing that responsibility. I think another real important piece that maybe Kevin might be, I'm sorry, addressing too, is a concern about variance in the actual course content, standards, and benchmarks in class. So I know our curriculum coordinators, the superintendent charges that have been extended, as well as just general curriculum committees and department meetings, are all addressing that course variance, so that you can be assured if a high school faculty member is instructing that course compared to the course being taught out here by LCCC faculty, that they are comparable. That's about it.
I guess I'm also looking, are you happy with it? Do you guys have complaints with us? We're coming down hard on our people here, and really probably it's, as Joe put it pretty succinctly, we remember too much of the past and get excited about it, but kind of forget that we are changing. And I appreciate you guys' efforts in that. And I don't think I can emphasize enough that if this accreditation is the tool, let's go for that. So, no, I kind of
would offer that. Yeah, no, I we don't hear complaints. We do hear concerns with, course variance,
Okay.
et cetera.
Concerns from your students' parents or?
From faculty,
Oh,
I suppose, as we're trying to align curriculum, deep alignment, we have purposely scheduled, I believe, at minimum 4, but I think there are 6 meetings scheduled with my curriculum coordinators and department heads throughout this year with LCCC, just to work on those articulations in that course delivery.
So from your perspective, it's going pretty good. And
I feel comfortable in that
continue
they're,
to try to grow the program.
I would concur.
Very good. Well, thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot.
And Mr. Chairman, I just need to add that the school district, when we've gone to them with these issues, have bent over backwards to address these issues with us. So I do need to add that to this piece. And then I also want to just conclude this by saying that, keep in mind, by not adhering to these things that you're asking for, we could lose accreditation. So we're not going to jeopardize something that we're working so hard on. So we're headed in the right direction to make this the highest quality program that we possibly could in the country.
Good. Okay, let's
I got
have,
one last question.
yeah, don't sit down yet.
I know she has homeschool students, I didn't ask you earlier. Who teaches them?
They only take dual credit and jump start. They don't have any concurrent enrollment. Although they can go into the district for one class. I've had a couple of students, homeschool students, who went into, for example, to take English 1010 and I think one who took calculus. So they can go in and take a class in their schools.
I'm going to continue, but I'm going to change a little direction here. I think, and I think, Joe, you have expressed your interest in it, and I don't know if it's a go-to, a cho-to, whatever, it starts with a B, BOCES, that we do need to pursue that, and we do know that that's got to be in cooperation with the Laramie County School District. Any ideas on what kind of time frame it takes to get something like that set up?
You know, I don't, and the very first thing I would recommend to you is you've got one of the state subject matter experts coming down here in 2 weeks. I would say meet with the person that really can give you the facts and give you the facts immediately on the ups and downs and challenges and issues of this spread. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
It's great.
I'm jumping out of line here. But I would really highly encourage you to take the time to meet with Sandy Barton. She offered to meet with you and tack on time to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
I could say that the CWC, according to all the paperwork that they sent us from there, they applied to the State Department of, not Department of Ed, the State Board of Education in February of the year that they were approved, and they received approval by April.
Okay, so I guess that's the answer
It's
to
in the
my
law,
question.
that's right, it's in the
It
law.
looks like it can happen pretty quick.
It can, it's in the law, it does not have to
It
go to a
will take
vote,
some work.
it's just an
Don't have to
agreement
run
between
our
the boards.
side. So, trustees, I throw it out to you, are these things that we should pursue? BOCES situation, BOCES something that we should pursue, and then I think that you guys are already pursuing, we're looking forward to hearing what's going on with the accreditation situation. Okay, any other comments from anybody? Thanks a lot, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for the lively conversation.
Greg,
Yes, ma'am.
if we have an opportunity to learn more about this, I think we should. And so maybe we can schedule something at a meeting or with the person that Mary Ellen was talking about, or somebody from one of the other colleges.
Yeah, I'd be happy to work with her to see if we can set up a time. I don't know if she'll be here during the business meeting or if we have time on the agenda on the 19th, but
The director, former director,
Joan
Oh.
Evans used to run the Parkin County Higher Education Center, and she's the director of workforce
successor
services.
would be trying to do is on my to get a study from the commission.
Joe, I won't put you totally on the spot on it, but maybe in the next couple of weeks or so, we can make some arrangements to get some expertise and some guidance and follow up on that within the next month or so.
I'd be happy to do that. And Tracy, I don't know if this is something, if we arrange something, if it would be of interest to you and to staff to maybe come and learn about it as well, and then we can certainly have a conversation with your board as well to see if it is an area that does require cooperation between you as trustees and the school board. It can be School District 1, School District 2, LP County. So that there are options to do that, but if you're interested or if council's interested, we can certainly invite you guys. Yeah, we're ready to get some stuff.
Okay.
We want this, if we should be on
Each district has to sit on the board. The board is governed by, the vote chooses, is governed by a joint board,
it. Yeah.
and each district is, we can't spend the money on District 2 if it's only District 1 that we're in the partnership with.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we generated some thought process and hopefully some action process too. And I know you guys are doing it already. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, knew we'd spend a little time. Number 3, LCCC governance. Let's go right to you, Brenda.
Thank you,
Talk to
Mr.
us.
Chairman. That's a hard act to follow, but I'll try. Trustee Kaiser and President Schaefer and I have met a couple of times and put in some efforts on creating new policies for the board. This would be to potentially replace our policy governance model. Vicki sent out our initial drafts on Friday, so you should have all received those. I sent out just a few updated ones later this afternoon. If folks have not looked at the updated ones, it's not that big of a deal if you haven't. The essence of what you needed to see is what Vicki sent out on Friday. Let me just briefly tell you a little bit about the process, and I should talk into this, the process and structure that we have gone through. What we did is we looked at the current policy governance model that we had. It was written in the form of kind of negative language and boundaries, but some of the concepts from policy governance were good ones. Mostly the separation of powers and the delegation of a lot of authority to the president. Some of those things we really like. And having the board be more the visionaries of the college. And then we also looked a lot at Wyoming statutes, the statutes that are in Title 21 that govern community college and colleges and community college districts. And we looked closely at those. And we used kind of a hybrid of statutes and policy governance. Plus, Joe was really good at finding us some examples from other colleges that he felt were good examples that when we were kind of stuck in a place wondering what to do, Joe said, well, this is what like the college in Santa Fe did, that sort of thing. So that helped us along. Then we came up with the initial draft that you got from Vicki on Friday. And then we also ran that draft by George Boggs and Cinder Smith, who have been helping us with our new policy direction. And George and Cinder made some comments. Some of those were just some tweaking of words, and that's what you would have gotten from me this afternoon. But George and Cinder also made some other comments to us. Some bigger issues that we probably need to discuss. Right now, the part that we have completed is the Chapter 1 governance section. Section 1.1 has to do with the college itself and the district. Then Section 1.2 has to do with we, the Board of Trustees. There are some things that we're going to want to talk about with that. And Section 1.3 has to do with the President, the Chief Executive Officer, and the responsibilities of the President. What I would like to do, Greg, if it's all right with you, is first just run through really quickly kind of the titles, the essence of what we meant to do under each of the titles so we can go fairly quickly. And then there's a few places where I'm going to want to stop and say, we as a board really need to think about this section and what we want to do, because it will really define a lot of who we are and how we see our place here on campus. So if that's all right with you, can we just run through them really quickly? Okay. Policy number 1.1.1 is our governance. This is just a general introduction page on how we see the responsibility of the board and we as individual trustees, especially if you look at AA, that's a good initial sentence. The Board of Trustees is a bridge between the college and the community. and that we facilitate the expectations of the community and bring those to the college. So a lot of the language that follows A.A fits right into that general statement. Then, if you go to policy number 1.1.2, this is a legal description of the community college district. This is taken almost word for word out of the statutes, out of Title 21, Community College Districts, Article 3. It's sort of a paraphrase of the statute. Then, policy 1.1.3, mission, vision, and values. Joe did a lot of this. This is all taken almost directly, I believe, from a vision and mission statement that we had already written for the college. And then policy 1.1.4, continuous improvement. This is something else that just talks about how we are dedicated to creating and sustaining a culture of continuous improvement. Continuing on, 1.1.5, shared governance. This talks about how we as the Board of Trustees also affirms the belief that we'll also look at faculty, staff, administration, and students when we are looking at the governance of the college. That we're not in this alone, but we are in this together. Then Joe has written a draft procedure about college council, but that will come at a later date when we're looking at procedure.
Actually, that procedure is, we did that when we created the college council policy and procedure internally, so it hasn't been approved by the campus.
Okay.
It's there as an illustration of what a procedure accompanying a policy would look like in here. So that was actually gone through the internal process.
Very good, thanks, Joe. And then policy 1.1.6, the organizational structure. This is taken a lot, this one statement was taken pretty much word for word from policy governance, that we recognize it's the president's role to establish the organizational structure. Then 1.1.7, the delegation of authority. This is an important one. This is how we as a board delegate to the president the executive responsibility for administering our policies. Then we get into the section 1.2. This has to do with us as a board, and I have a real personal affection for this section because this really defines us and who we are. Policy 1.2.1. This is our code of ethics and our standards of practice for the Board of Trustees. This will talk about how we will govern with an outward vision, that we have a sense of group responsibility, that we commit ourselves to ethical and professional conduct, that we'll serve without compensation, those types of things. This is a combination, a hybrid of what was already in policy governance, along with some flavorings from Wyoming statute. Then membership on the board, that's policy number 1.2.2. This is directly from statute. I even have the reference there, Wyoming statute 21-18-308, that talks about the Board of Trustees consisting of 7 members. Then if you go on to policy number 1.2.3, I'm going to pause here for a moment because this is one we're going to need to discuss. On or about December 1st of each year, we elect officers. And Joe and John and I had a discussion about this, and Greg, you were a part of this discussion. That is actually statutory. Greg was asking if it was statutory, if we could change December to another time. But it is statutory that on or about December 1st of each year, we will elect board officers. Now, here's what we need to talk about. There has been no structure for the way we choose officers of this board. It's been done through lobbying and phone calls and people voicing their desire to be an officer. A lot of times it falls on the current chair to look at what officers want to come up on the board. We need to decide if we want to change that. I was going to say fix, but fix assumes that's broken. So do we, in fact, want to change the way that we elect board officers? Specifically, do we want to have a nominating committee? if we want to have a nominating committee, who should be on that committee? An idea I had was that it would be 2 board members who are not up for re-election. So in this case, it would be 2 of either me or Carol or Kevin in this particular instance, because we're the 3 that are not up for re-election this year. That is only one idea, and that's not even my recommendation. That's just an idea, but that's something we really need to think about as we keep going here. Think about that, and I'll leave it up to Greg how he wants to come back and discuss some of those things. But mark that one. Then meetings of the board, that's policy number 1.2.4. I actually added a lot to this one when I was looking at it. George recommended that we add something about closed sessions, that we add something about emergency meetings, that we clarify why the statute said it takes a minimum of 3 votes to make a decision, so I put in some clarification language. I made sure that there was some delegation language when it came to the secretary, but I did not do that with the, nope, that's not here. Erase what I just said. Announcements of board meetings, that there was public comment at all the meetings, that type of thing. I would ask you to please look at my revision of this policy that I sent this afternoon. This is 1.2.4. This is something else that we just need to decide how much we want in policy and how much we don't.
I maybe wasn't paying attention before. Does this reflect any changes that you made, or there's another document that's got some?
The one that you got from Vicki, what you are looking at on your iPad is what I sent this afternoon.
So
Vicki
it's the
Cracker Jack.
It's the current draft. Okay.
Yes. If you are looking at your iPad, what you are looking at is the revisions with my changes in them. Then, under policy 1.2.5, these are board responsibilities. These are taken, once again, as a hybrid between statute and policy governance. You might want to take a look at those, see if there's anything you want to change. One of the things that George brought up in his comments is there seems to be some redundancy between board responsibility, delegation of authority, and code of ethics, and he thought maybe some of this policy could be spread into those. Joe and I had a discussion about that, and we're not convinced that that has to happen, but it's something that we might want to talk about. Policy number 1.2.6 is board committees. This is pretty much word for word from policy governance. 1.2.7, board self-evaluation, very broad, basically saying we will evaluate ourselves. Policy number 1.2.8, this is conflicts of interest. This is also taken mostly from policy governance, some of statutes. Policy number 1.2.9, board travel. Once again, this is a lot from policy governance with some of our own words added in. John and Joe and I had some discussion about how we wanted some of the wording in this one, so you will see that. 1.2.10, board development and education. The same. This was a lot of what we took from policy governance, and then John and I and Joe sat down and thought about how we wanted to define board development and education. So this is a lot of some of our own words as well. Policy number 1.2.11, policy development and approval. This is this was created by our very own Dr. Schaefer. And he also did a procedure on that, which is the procedure that goes along with it. And then we are now in...
Can I stop you? Are those procedures in here?
There are 2 procedures in there. Some of them, I believe, are at the tail end.
Oh, yeah, I think that's right.
Does it come right below the policy, or does it?
I believe both procedures come at the very end. Is that correct?
Okay.
That is correct.
And then we start our next section, which is 1.3.1, where we start talking about the president. And you will see policy 1.3.1 is the responsibilities of the CEO. In the statutes, Joe's position is described as CEO. For our particular board, we call that person the president. And that's really long because we want him to do a lot of work. Then policy 1.3.2 is the CEO evaluation and accountability. This mostly talks about the fact that we will evaluate Joe on whether he's carrying out our policies and whether he is performing according to the contracts. And then policy 1.3.3 is also Joe's creation on CEO succession. When we were first talking about changing our governance model, and we were talking with George Boggs about that, his recommendation was that the first thing we do to move forward is to write down our governance policies, which is this chapter 1, which we have completed. Theoretically, we could change our governance model based on these policies. There are more that need to be developed by the college. Academic affairs and finance, student affairs, those kinds of things that will be Joe's responsibility, and those will come down the road. But in order for us to officially switch models, we needed to have these governance policies in place that basically state what we are going to do and what we are going to ask Joe to do. I would ask two things. First, I would like you to look through these and let me know if there's any problems you have with them and send me notes on that. I also invite anyone in this room or folks in the college, Vicki has posted these online, so anyone can look at them, and I want to strongly encourage folks who have something to say about our governance model. We're all in this together, guys, so if you see a red flag or something that could cause a problem, please know that I will expect you to tell us that, because that's what we need to know. We see things from one angle and you see things from another, so we need to know those things. What I would then suggest, Greg, is that at our next meeting, we could come into our business meeting with perhaps a model that's ready for us to take a vote on. But I do want to talk about specifically our election of officers and what was the other one? The 1 point. Yes, was it? Yeah. So that's all I have to say.
Just a couple of things for clarification and information. So when we get to, I'm hoping, Lisa, I'm not putting your folks on the spot, but when we get to your business meeting later this month, we should have a new policies and procedures manual online, up and running with all of these. It'll be a website you'll be able to link to, might be very easy for navigation. We're hoping to have that up and running as you consider this at your business meeting. The other piece, just for clarification, many of the policies and procedures associated with the other areas below, Chapter 1, academic affairs, finance, all of those, the college already has a significant number of those in place. Some need to be reviewed. We do need some additions. Once you make the shift, we will start moving those over immediately. So they are the policies and procedures that we've been functioning under while you've been under policy governance. So like I said, there's some work to be done there, but it's not that we're starting from a completely blank slate. We have actually done work on organizing those, and we'll move those over once you make this shift.
My head hurts.
So,
Big time.
Greg,
No,
what would you like to
I guess,
over?
you know what, let me just make a couple general comments. I need to read through them very carefully. But I do appreciate your efforts in putting this together, John, Brendan, and Joe. And hopefully we can all read them, put our heads together and come up. And I think the other thing, and I think I saw it in the procedure side, is if we get going down a path and we see that it's not the right path, I don't think we need to be afraid to fix it as quickly as we can.
Not at all.
And I don't want to have any impediment in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the way we ought to operate the college operationally, and that we ought to operate that way from a board perspective. Now, not changing everything every single time. I mean, we need to think about it and see that's where we want to go. But I do want to make sure in my mind and just declare that I think it's shows some courage to change if you got going in the wrong direction. So.
I agree.
Any comments, or, so, a lot of stuff?
I want to add one more thing, Greg, and just as a bit of background, the three of us made a really good team on this effort, because I could look at the statutes and take statutory language and look at policy governance, and I could do a lot of the wordsmithing. Joe was wonderful with telling us if he could work within these policies, if these worked for him and the college, and clarified and helped in our relationship. Joe had a lot of experience also with looking up policies from other schools and was really good at advising us on what would work for us. And then John's historical knowledge was really good. So if we came upon some language that we weren't quite sure what to do, John was very good at saying, historically this caused a problem, or historically this worked, or just throughout the story of the Board of Trustees what really worked. So you'll see a lot of that in some of this too.
Okay. All right. Do you want to talk about these, what were the two things that you wanted to talk about?
I would like us
Of an election process?
an election process. I would like to look at policy 1.2.3.
Okay.
And then I would also like us to look at 1.2.4, our meetings.
Okay.
I think those were the two, weren't they, Joe? That I
What
had
page
here.
is? Got me so organized, I'm confused.
18.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Those are the ones I had stronger.
I guess I was the poxer on this election thing, and my only comment, and I guess that I can't change it or not, is I think one of the disadvantages of having our elections just right after the board elections, right after the general election, is the fact can be up to 4 members of the board that don't know anybody else. And so I was trying to see if there was some way that we at least have a couple meetings before we get elected. Huh?
Saw that on the commission.
Yeah.
They wouldn't vote for their
And it's not a negative thing or not, it's just that, and I was the same way. I came out and I go, I don't know these 3 people. I shook their hand and talked to them a couple times. I don't really know how they operate. So that doesn't look like it's going to work, other than if you do get elected, and it's what, the first week of November. I hope to pray that you come to that first meeting. Don't miss that one, so you at least get a little flavor of what's going on, because it looks like that we do have to have that election right at the beginning. Then we did talk about, I mean, pretty much, and you know, and it's difficult with a small board like this, fairly small board.
That might be something to change. The statute used to say the exact hour. When
Yeah.
you had to approve the budget.
Yeah.
And they did change that.
Yeah.
Where
I mean, just to be common sense, it says, let's make it like the middle of January, so you had a couple meetings to see how people work, you know, before you put them in a position for the rest of the year, but that's cool. Then the other thing that we did talk about was, should there be some kind of process? Because it's kind of a scramble. I mean, there's probably certain times where nobody wants the position. And you're like, okay, well, somebody, would you please volunteer? And so I guess what you're looking, at least one suggestion you had is, you know, maybe you have a nominating committee of people that you know are going to be there, and have them at least go do some of that legwork up front, and so we're not scrambling either, you know, the last couple of weeks before that meeting, or sometimes the night of that meeting. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn, because on one hand I'm like, you know, it works okay. We're a small board. I don't know how else you can do it. John, you had your hand.
Well, it's legal in Wyoming, but that's called successive meetings, if you do it that way.
What's that?
Where if you have a nominated committee going around working on it. I think with a 7-member board, what we do now is.
I agree.
Doing 16, 18, 25 members, yeah, you probably want a nominating committee. Trouble with nominating committee, if you have 2, you got 4 officers.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
2 are still going to have to come out of the.
right.
of the
So
nominating.
Someone,
Mhm.
you know, and I don't see any problem with it now.
Okay.
It's worked.
You know what, I'll agree with you on that.
As Brenda
I
told
just
me,
think we're too
Victoria-
small to mess with it. It was good. It was a thought.
Excuse me.
Okay. You got anything more to say on it, or we go forward with that one?
No.
Okay.
If everybody's okay with that, we can always change it later if we want to.
Okay, so what was your next one that we wanted to look at?
Look at 1.2.4, meetings of the board.
Okay, that's one of them.
And would you please look at C, D, F, and G. And this was just mostly my language, and so I'm feeling a little bit nervous about it because I mostly wanted to get a placeholder. But what do we need to say about our executive sessions? What do we need to say about calling an emergency meeting? Lance, I'm going to ask you to help with this one too, because you probably know the statutes by heart. The Public Law Act, I didn't pull it up. And then about compiling the agenda, which is F. So I would take any comments on this, and Lance, and your help too would be really nice.
Go ahead, John.
Well, the first two sentences say the same thing. So,
A and B.
no, in C.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Paragraph C, I didn't say it's paragraph, but the first two sentences say the same thing.
Oh, they do.
And then-
Yeah, they do.
The last sentence, we never take action in executive session, so we can't come out with a statement about that.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I have it right here.
Gary Hall.
So maybe all you need is that middle sentence.
I guess I'll take all the gobbledygook I added to C and leave it as it is.
The more black you take off, the better I feel.
So you're gonna remove the first sentence in C?
No, I'm going to leave the first sentence in C.
Take off.
Should I cite the open meeting law?
Well, I guess so, but the first sentence doesn't, you just say it complies with all applicable open meeting laws. We're talking the state of Wyoming.
Right,
So the
okay.
second sentence, I want sound.
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
actually B covers that, so you don't even need either one now that I go back. You can scratch both of those sentences if you back up to
Okay, so take out all of C?
B. No, it's still, well, yeah, because we said the last sentence, we can't do it anyway. So, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so take out all of C. Okay, how about emergency meetings, D?
That says okay.
Okay, and then,
Well, actually, D still falls under B, because statute says that you call an emergency. Including performance, all meetings of the Board of Trustees.
and I agree with you, John, but I agree with you on one hand, but another suggestion I have for leaving this in here is because it does actually specify an emergency meeting. So to me, it adds into policy that we can hold an emergency meeting, but we won't do it any differently than we do our other meetings. I kind of like that in there.
Okay, straw poll.
What was the other one you wanted?
Let's look at F, the agenda. This is all just Brenda Little language, so tear it apart, please.
And, Mr. Chair, if we could back up just a little bit. I think on the last one, Brenda, with your emergency meeting
Yes.
provision, we know that's in the statute. But if you really have to call an emergency meeting, it would be nice to have it right before the board rather than the board saying, well, what statute applies. So if we even copy that language from the statute that says this is the process for calling an emergency meeting, that way you have that right in the policies. If something comes up quickly, you just look at your policy and you follow it.
Okay, I'll find the language in the statute and do that.
I don't think it's very long.
No,
You
it's
can
not.
call emergency
It's not.
meeting,
And
then you gotta take action, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you just put that language, then we're not concerned about, well, what, where's the statute and
Yeah.
finding it if there's truly an emergency.
Would you say the same with B land?
Yeah, well, there's more to that provision. It's a little bit longer. So I think
Okay.
B sums it up. If we have time, Vicky's an expert on making sure that the
Right.
paper's noticed and everything. I'm just concerned about emergency meetings and everyone's scrambling to say, well, what do we need to do?
Okay.
And
Okay,
and
yeah,
so, that's what I'd recommend.
okay. Should we add, the meetings of the board will be run according to parliamentary procedure? Robert's Rules of Order? You want that in there?
Don't actually do it now.
I really wanna. How about the modified Robert's rules?
Bob's rules? The informal ones, Bob.
Okay.
Do we need to put it in there?
I mean, the nice thing is, Mr. Chair, if there is ever a point of contention, it's nice to have some rules that you can fall back to. Although in all the years that, yeah, in recent years, you haven't had that issue. But if it ever came up, it would be nice to have some default rules that you can fall back to.
Relax, I understand.
We could say we could say something generally, we could say something like, we will generally follow the Robert's Rules of Order, something like that.
We can work on that language.
I think you gotta have something in there, just tighten it down.
All right, I'll think on that.
Since I'm gonna go back to my title here,
Historian?
yeah.
Okay.
For most meetings, you can run them pretty loose, as Greg said, but all it takes is one board member, and then the chair has to bring in Robert's Rules of Order and say, I'm sorry.
No, I agree.
Because
Okay,
You just end up with a mess.
I think that's a good idea, John. I'll add something in there about that.
And I know that historical piece, John.
yeah.
I was going to say, it's a planned process, so what we would do after you review tonight, we'll make changes. Other feedback as you review that comes in, we'll update those, and then we'll send all of these to Lance for legal review and say, yeah, no, this needs to be changed, something, try to incorporate those before the.
Okay, and the last
Well, I want you to look
topic
at
of concern?
still look at F.
Oh. Transfer the agenda and clear out 4 days if possible, unless it's
You know, you've got in here, and then it's the obligation of the secretary in here to compile and publicly announce the agenda, but the secretary may have designated a college employee to do that, so should
Yeah.
we say, or their designee?
Yeah, we could, I
Well,
meant
this is
Vicky when
secretary
I
to
said
the
that.
board,
Oh,
not
It's not
secretary
secretary of the board, so it
Well,
was,
that was another,
it was Ms. Boring I was thinking of.
Yeah, I understand, but it,
I noticed when I was reading this afternoon, we have quite a bit where we designate Vicky's position, where all the way through, not just this particular one, but it should say president, and he can.
You're right.
It shouldn't,
Yeah,
it shouldn't
it
say
should talk about
Vicky,
Vicky.
Vicky's spot.
So-
Does it, it should just say the
Yeah.
president will release the agenda to the next.
The chairman of the board and the president of the college will compile the agenda, and is everything else okay?
No, because the next, you say the secretary to the board will release, it should say the president will release. In the second sentence.
The president will release the agenda, will publicly announce the agenda. The president, okay.
Then I would definitely agree with Kevin to say, or his designee.
No, it's.
Will
yeah,
be
we don't-
responsible. I will say the president will
We
be
have that
responsible.
further up where it says
Yeah.
he will select the people to get the job done.
That's true.
And then we'll release, so that the president will be responsible to release the agenda for the next meeting 4 days before the next scheduled meeting if possible, but no less than 24 hours.
And Mr. Chair, one thing you may want to consider adding is a provision that allows the board members to add to the agenda. I think you had that in your previous policies. Or if there's something that comes up between this 24-hour notice on the agenda and the time that you actually hold the meeting, have a process in place to where you can add items to the agenda at the beginning of the meeting.
Here's the process in place.
Yeah.
Just writing on a piece of paper.
Of course.
But if you follow parliamentary procedure, the typical process is you do that before you accept the agenda, before you start the meeting, so that's the.
My concern would be if somebody challenged you, for the most part, the board's always agreed to that, but my concern would be if there's no way of getting something on the agenda because you don't have the process in place.
True. No, I think that's weird.
Is that in policy governance laws?
I
Did
believe it
miss
was.
Oh, I'll take a look at policy
I don't
governance.
remember for sure, Brad. Let me take a look and see.
I mean, yeah, if usually the chairman says, fine, we'll talk about it, but if he doesn't, you need to give somebody,
Okay.
As long as we're going to compliance with statute, statute's always called the head of the board, the president, rather than chair, chairperson, chairman. I don't know if we want. It said, the statute says president, treasurer, and secretary, then recognize vice president. It does say you can appoint one, but they don't give it a title.
We can clarify that, just in the board officers, depending on what you want, but if you want to conceive of board chair, you can say that Alexa president or for purposes of your governance, identified as the chair.
President, and then we can say something like which will be called the board chairperson or something like that.
Or president, it's fine. And your past practice has been chairman or chairperson.
I like chairman better.
Because you're the
You when they
president.
say president and they're not.
How long has it been?
I know you were. You just leave that little doubt in
All of
somebody's
them,
mind.
it's always been chairman.
So even
Just
though the
never been
statute read
chairperson.
something else, we call the person the chairperson.
I can do something with that. I can quote the statutory language and then put something in there that says the board president shall be called the chairperson of the board. I mean, that, then we have a bridge between the statute and reality.
And Brenda, that policy is 4.3.
Okay, thanks, Lance.
And right now, it just calls by affirmative vote, a majority of the members of the board or those present at the meeting. Additional matters may be added to the agenda.
Oh, that's
of any
good.
of the meetings. So
Well, I'll just put that in there. Yeah, thank you.
That's one thing we've always done. We've never approved
So with the election of officers, I actually need to change that to president, which will be called.
Are we gonna have time to do this with my husband? To get all the feedback? Get it all?
Yourselves, you know.
Our committee said we're sticking to our time.
Okay.
These are the,
Sticking to our time, we're going to approve on.
And that's what I'd like to do, but also Carol, as Greg mentioned, if we notice that there's a real problem down the road.
I mean, if you're reading through this thing in 2 months and you go, ooh, man,
We
That's
just
double.
change the policy, what,
I think that I like to get her in place just to say, hey, we got that done and tick it off the list, you know?
And I think we should just call it something like Laramie County Community College Board Policy or Board Governance Policy. Just something that simple. Is that okay?
You want to catch her name in that?
Well, I'd love a catchier name, but
she doesn't want to say it.
Come on.
Well, you know what she's thinking.
Well,
That's what it's called right now, we're in parenting college board policy.
Okay.
/procedure. Joe, got any bright ideas on that one, or?
No, I think your governance philosophy policy is actually where you really outline philosophical bunch about how you want to govern this institution. Although Dr. Miles did say that between governance philosophy policy and one on the code of ethics, standards of practice, as well as responsibilities of the board, those could be combined into one or maybe two different ones. But I think that governance philosophy is an important policy for you to start off in chapter 1 on, and there's strong statements in there, but I think that pretty much defines your governance model, to be honest with you.
No, I was just saying, do you have fancy names? No, I like the name.
I like that you guys in the structure, the board defines copyrights
We'll be in the foundation and somebody gives us $5 million.
So as a matter of process of proceeding, so with the changes that you have, are you comfortable with updating those changes based on the conversation tonight?
Yes.
And then we can send those out to the entire board. I encourage you to review them as soon as you can, give feedback, thoughts, or changes to them so I can get them to Lance to review for his legal department and any other considerations. We will do our best to exceed even the 4-day notice of the agenda for the September 19th meeting, so then you have time to review them again and then have that conversation. They are actually, if you haven't gone through them, they are, for the most part, most of them are actually, they're fair. I don't think we're going to have a lot of struggle with them. Dr. Boggs and Dr. Smith say, really they're solid in many cases. Ones that are good to identify, and the ones that you want to take. So all these, they're actually pretty strong.
Yeah, I felt really pleased that they had so few comments.
That's an important part.
Yeah, and George said, nice job, so I was pleased about that.
Okay, any other comments on that topic? Okay. Got a couple more. Number 4, board priorities. They are board priorities. Budget priorities. And Joe's kind of reiteration of Joe's personal goals. So I will start out on the budget priorities. Joe and I met. We had a pretty lengthy discussion middle of August in regards to trying to come up with some priorities that we can state that we want people to be thinking about when they're doing the current budget. It just so happens that they probably are major priorities that we need to be working on and want to be working on. I will say the highlighted words are mine. Joe added all the fluff. No, it's there. But let me go through those. I think when we initially talked about this, I just cautioned that we don't want too many, because we can't, we don't want a sandwich bigger than we can eat. That I got from my little daughter. Dad, I don't want that whole sandwich. Okay. Don't want to bite off more than we can chew. So, number 1, priority, invest in instruction. Board of Trustees recognize the center of our mission is a community college resides in the teaching and learning that happens at the college. To strengthen this, the college must continue to invest in construction with a focus on full-time faculty positions, where the greatest opportunity exists to meet enrollment demands and ensure instructional effectiveness and quality. You want me to run through these and then we can go back and get comments, if there are any? So, and there's a reason that's number 1. There is number 1. Number 2, progress on the building forward facilities plans. College has an aggressive 8-year plan to expand and improve its facilities. The Board of Trustees desires to continue progress on the achievement of that plan, specifically focusing on the necessary facilities planning and building the case to launch successful campaigns critical to securing the funds. So basically what we're saying is keep the plans going and figure out how we're going to secure funds this year. Number 3, invest in student services. Board of Trustees believes that a robust and comprehensive set of integrated student services can improve student success in the classroom while serving them better outside. College must create a plan for strengthening its student services, especially in the areas of student advising. So we're making sure that we're emphasizing the advising side. And with this plan will come the necessary investment. So I guess this year our priority is to make sure that we figure out what we want to do and be prepared to invest next year. That's our budget advice. Continue to stabilize college. There are considerable changes in the works of college, and the Board of Trustees recognizes that these changes will take time. However, there are equal expectations of the board that the college will continue to assess and where appropriate implement the recommendations with the organizational assessment, as well as improving major institutional processes such as the development of the annual budget. So that is specifically of the progress in stabilizing the institution must continue. And then lastly, this is one that Joe and I stuck in there because it really drives the other four and a variety of other things, is we need to update our strategic plan. College's current strategic plan is dated, needs to be revisited. It does, however, still contain many areas that are germane to the necessary direction the college must take. The Board of Trustees has myriad interests in leading the college into the future. Some of these are embodied in the current plan, while others are not. In addition, the college would benefit from a more focused, deliberate vision set by the board. Therefore, it is a priority of the board to update the strategic plan in fiscal 13. Those are the 5 proposed budget priorities that we would like to focus on. Comments, questions?
I think it's an appropriate number, and I'm glad you put instruction first, because that's the one that I mentioned at our last meeting, and I have no argument with it. That's the appropriate size for this.
Okay. Anybody else? Because what I would like to do is, obviously they're already public. If we refine these and say these are our priorities, we will publicly announce that's what we're focused in on. I have no qualms with doing that. And if anybody else, I don't know if everybody else feels the same way. Sometimes people like to keep their priorities semi-secret, but I don't want to do that.
Mr. Chairman, you wanted to actually formally approve these, so they will be on your business agenda on the 19th.
How are we going to use these, Greg? Are we going to use them to help us focus as things come at us? Are these going to drive our decisions?
Well, I think I think it may be all of the above. I think number 1, at the request of the administration, what are our priorities for them in developing the budget for next year?
Oh, I see.
Okay, that's
Okay.
one of the main reasons why we want to do this.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
And Joe and I chatted, and we can get into some of the details of it, but we'll be looking at how much resources are we putting into the instruction side. And we may not jump from what are we at right now? 43, 42, 43. We may say that we might get to 50. It may take us 3 years, but we need to stay focused in on it. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned in 3 years, you don't have any dates on
No, and maybe what we need to do is a little introductory paragraph. I mean, this really is at least in my mind, the primary purpose was to give budgetary direction for the next year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not to go beyond, although, a lot of these things float on, but to give budgetary direction as to where we put our resources. So, I don't know, John, you could put an introductory sentence in there. These are the items that we want to focus on. I'm going to leave it to the wordsmith here to put something in there if you would like that. It is more of a, I'm not going to say that it's a one-year focus, but we need to focus, we're going to get rid of the word focus. These are the things we want emphasized when they are building the budget.
And that's fair, John.
And that is kind of a one-year time.
One of the things that we've been struggling with, because the strategic plan is dated and the area is not very clear, truly getting some guidance for the work we're doing right now is critical. And this does two things. As you said, it certainly sets the stage for the way we'll develop our budget and conversation. But there are things that we're working on a daily basis, and this keeps us focused on what we believe to be your priorities on the work that we're doing even in this year. When we get to the strategic plan, and many of the things that were brought up at your last study session really should be part of a strategic plan update conversation, because we've got everyone from broad to very specific. That will help fill in the gaps in terms of dates and expectations for activities to happen.
To me, that's one that should have some
Which one?
Number 5.
It does fiscal year 13
Budget
this
says
year.
FY 13, which is 12 months rather than January 15.
People about, what, 10 and a half left? So,
We'll take your recommendations on it. I mean, it's
Well,
not gonna change the
the board,
intent.
the budget starts running after the card in February. I would suggest that you have strategic plan in place updated by January 15th.
I don't want to speak for Carol or for the facilities and finance, because the budget's actually going to ramp up here now. And one of the struggles with
Well, I
this is,
understand that, but seriously.
yeah, I don't know that we have enough time to update the strategic plan and use that update to guide the budget development for next year. And so this is sort of the middle of the road. It gives priorities to help us to both update the strategic plan, but as you're developing the budget, the conversations are happening now, focus on these areas. So we've tried to strike a middle ground with these.
Yeah.
I believe.
And I think the other thing that Joe and I did talk about, because we are going to be bringing on, what is the person, VP of
So the Associate Vice President of Institutional Effectiveness.
of institutional effectiveness, of which this will be their main job, is helping develop, fine tune, keep updated, keep it communicated, etc. So we don't have that person yet. So probably, and we could get a compromise. Let's take our current strategic plan, put some meat to it, because there are some good things in it. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
They just are not very specific. And that we would just kind of, when we said update our strategic plan, would basically take what we have, update it, put some more meat to it, and then when this person comes in, hopefully they look at it and go, oh, you got a good core of move on, or they may throw the whole thing out. I doubt it. But we didn't really want to create a document that here's a strategic plan, that will be your job. That was just a thought process on that. We can definitely put a date on it. I mean, I would like to have it done before this person comes on board, which we're not looking until sometime in the spring, right? Most likely.
Yeah, and our plan was to look at doing an update to the strategic plan sometime this fall, like maybe closer to November, but we have an interest in having it happen earlier as well.
I don't know, if you feel strong about putting a date, we'll put a date. I mean, we put by the end of March,
Yeah,
I think what you've done here is very good, and I don't know why you start putting dates on them and then, you know.
Well, I think the date's inherent here. This, I mean,
It's inherent that they
and
have
maybe
to
I
be
said,
done.
maybe I put, I mean, it says fiscal 13 priorities. I mean, this,
I think
this is what needs to be focused on. So. Okay, you all right with this? And certainly you can have more comments to it, but I think we beat this horse pretty strongly. And I appreciate everybody's efforts, really. I think we had a great session, even though we did get into some details last month, and that's what this came out of. And I think that's a major part of our job, doing these types of things. So. Okay, Mr. Joe, I'm going to let you present your personal goals. You've done it once.
Yeah.
Let's do it again, and hopefully they're in sync with our priorities.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and you've seen these as part of my evaluation process, very, very little tweaking, which means that I don't know that I did a whole lot of any tweaking. These are the ones that I proposed to you. They are, as you can see, in line with your priorities, although there's some greater detail in different parts of them. But for the most part, I think they're very well aligned with your board priorities. We'll bring these in tandem to your business meeting, and I guess the process that we had discussed is that you would accept my goals, maybe not approve them, but accept my goals, or you approve them, however you want to do it. But But this is really an illustration both to you and also to the campus of the specific goals that I set for myself in the coming year, and also illustrating how they align with your priorities. So I don't think we need to go through them.
Okay. Again, he's pretty short and succinct. You have a little more stuff to it.
He's a really, really well, right?
No.
Yeah. No.
You know, a couple of things I just want to point out, because I know it's been the interest of some of you as trustees, probably all of you. You know, there are clear goals like associated with number 3, dealing with improving the processes. So I know we've had a lot of conversation about the budget process, the planning process we were just talking about. So that is one of the things we'll dig into, make sure we have improved very strong, inclusive and transparent processes on the college, and it's something that I'm going to spend time on this year.
Any comments? Okay, so our expectations at the meeting is that we will approve our priorities and accept our president's goals, and that those will be incorporated into next year's evaluation. Okay. Number 5, notification of intent to bring University Student Center Level 1 study forward for approval. So, I'm going to give that one to you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I almost should apologize to Tim and Stephen for being here through the entire conversation, but I know you were riveted by it, so it was time well spent.
You gotta run now.
But they are here should you have questions. But essentially what this is our delivery of the updated Level 1 plan for the University Student Center. After that process, it's for you to review and look at. We will bring it to your business meeting on the 19th for your formal approval. And I believe at that time we'll also have an update on the next steps, Level 2 planning with that project, as well as possibly some updates that I think folks wanted on the joint planning for the Albany County campus expansion. But Stephen is here and Tim is here as well. And if you have questions specifically about this process now or the plan, I know they'd be happy to answer those questions. Or if there's anything that you want to say to really trying to make you feel like we're here. We're not jumping to the bait.
Well, you know what, I'll have some questions for you. Not really, I want to get some clarification so I understand. So, the size of this building, at least right now, we're looking at about 63,000 square feet. Correct. How many stories? 3. 3 stories. And then, I don't know, did you mention in there that there's potential that we may want to plan for a 4th story?
Would like to go with microphone.
Sure.
Yes, as the program, the revised program that we went through states, the 63,000 square feet could be accommodated in 3 stories
Okay.
at the present site where it's located.
Which is out?
Which is just north of the student center, student services building right now.
Okay.
Now that's where the master plan shows it.
Correct.
Now that might not be where it eventually could be, because we kicked around some other locations, because master plans tend to be fluid documents and tend to change. But we did also, Joanne and I, and Kim and Carol, kicked around the idea of building a shelved space on the 4th floor, similar to what you did with the health sciences building. That space was actually brought online sooner than we would ever thought, because it was there and was ready to be built out. And so the thought was that it would, if we built out a 4th floor, you would have all the utilities in the building that would accept a 4th floor. All you would have to do is do that interior renovation and have essentially 20% more building there than actually 30% more building there than without the infrastructure. There's another way to do that, and that's to design all the infrastructure to put another floor on, but it gets very problematic doing that. We did that with the the hospital downtown, and we put floors on, and and it's difficult because you have to evacuate people below when you're swinging steel, and it gets costly. And so if you want to think expansion in the future, it would be much better now to put those dollars into the building. It's not in the estimate for a fourth floor right now, but it was a thought that we kicked around that somebody should decide whether it'd be a good idea or not.
And what we said is we would most likely, when it got to this point, put it out as an alternative in the bidding process. Is that?
It could be done that way as an alternate. Typically, what it's done in the bidding process, if you're not going to put the fourth floor on, then you don't want to design the footings and foundations of the steel to do that. And to try to back all that off and redesign the footings for a smaller building is a little problematic. So what you could do is design them all for that fourth floor and say, okay, we're just not going to go to the fourth floor, and just live with what you spent additional footing and steel costs, which is not that much.
And give me a little feel on incremental cost on putting up a shell on it.
Well, I think
Let's even back up, because I'm not finding it, and Joe and I went through this pretty carefully a couple of weeks ago. What is our total estimate on the building?
26 million with all the soft costs. The building itself is 18.5.
Okay, when you say soft cost, that's furniture, fixtures?
It's FF&E, it's your internal costs. We threw some costs in for you, for insurances, for bonding costs.
But it's all in.
Fees for designers, fees for testing, all of that.
Okay. Necessary facilities in academic areas, et cetera.
Yes.
Whatever.
Right. That's
So basically we're looking at, so I guess what I'm talking about is really building is 18 million, incremental cost on putting up the extra shell, the extra floor.
I have to look at it, but typically it's probably per floor. In other words, if a per square foot, I think we had, what do we have in there?
220 grand a floor.
225. I would say your build out for that, or just for the shell cost, would be a third of that. And
225, so 80 bucks.
80, 90 bucks a square foot just for the shell.
Times 30, so we're looking at another. Hold on. Can't do that,
2.4 million.
There we go. Thank you, Kevin.
All right.
Well, what's the 62?
Yeah.
Thousand square foot
It's
divided by
240, I was
three.
gonna say 240, and I go, that's not right. Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, just having that shell up there, putting that up there and just saying you could have the space available for just renovation costs, does that include, do we need to add any utilities to that part of the campus? I mean, we need more chillers or anything?
Well, you'll need that for the original building.
Oh, and so it would be sized so that we could put on the
Correct.
fourth floor at no additional cost there?
One big cost, if you look at the costs on the utilities, is extending the utilities from the north plant over to the building, because the chiller and heating capacity in the existing fiscal plant is maxed out.
But this has plenty of spare.
This is designed for future buildings, but we have to get it over there.
Yeah.
So there's a utility tunnel and utilities that go along in that tunnel. Also, there's some electrical costs as well, but fortunately, they're like right across the street. So.
So you got everything covered?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know, Stephanie, you know, one of the nice things is, while it's had some change in scope, and we'll talk about this on the 19th, you know, the predominant shift is away from a lot of space focused on future UW expansion, although there's that space built in, and certainly there's fourth floor to additional programs. It's really bringing out and giving them space for many of the services that are here now. And some of that shift for future growth is really going to address what we need right now for student services and the consolidation of things. But overall, the actual building is fairly comparable to where it was when we did the initial planning. It's 55 to 63,000 square feet. I mean, so we're...
Yeah, it's slightly larger, but certainly not that much larger. When we went through and met with all the different groups and revalidated the square footages and the need for the types of spaces. We did increase some instructional spaces, classrooms, but for the most part, the functions that were needed before and were validated by this the second time through, and some of the UW spaces, some of the programs actually dropped out, office space more than anything, because they decided there's certain departments that they were not going to bring over here that the original study said they were.
And, just a couple things looking at it, we're about 26,000 square feet of that 63 is pure instructional space. I want you to know that.
Thank you.
Fits in with our thought process. And then one thing Joe did point out to me, give me a little warm, fuzzy feeling.
Gets back to the question that priority number 1 and 2 is construction.
That's what we were talking about. Thanks, Mike. You just popped a song in my head and it interrupted my thought process.
Well, while you're thinking, Mr. Chair.
I'm just saying.
Mr. Chair, the difference actually increased from the first time. The instructional space went up this time.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, man. I think there's more of an emphasis on instructional space. We know that we wanted an emphasis on having UW presence there. We have about 17,000 square feet there, and I said, oh man, I thought they were going to kind of split this thing. But the point is that instructional space and some of that other space is there to use. Bring the programs here and we'll plug you in. So, yes, ma'am.
Greg, just in general, which floors are going to be student services and which floors are going to be of the
That in a level 1 study is not determined. We'll determine that in a level 2 study.
Thanks, Stephen. That makes sense.
No, my
And-
answer, student services are probably on the first floor.
Yeah, generally, your welcome center and your integrated service center is all going to be on the first floor. You're probably seeing classrooms and faculty space in the upper floors.
Yeah.
One thing too, a lot of the space can be dual use space. Certainly a lot of the classrooms and instructional space, conference rooms, they can be used by LCCC and UW. I think the intent was for that to happen.
Right.
If we put the sport floor on, we put baskets and move on the installation to the top floor.
Just the ones I don't like.
Okay, Karen, did you get that?
Oh, yes.
Or you'll go up there and then we'll penthouse.
No, that's scalable space for students and classrooms and things like that. Although there was considerable conversation about large assembly space and trying to build the flexibility for large assembly. There was conversation about a larger boardroom. We don't notice it as much here, but I know the people around us notice the cramped nature of this boardroom. So there are other conversations, and most of that will play out as the level 2 study process.
Yeah, there is a space, there is a large space, and you can go through each department. There is a large space for where you can get the entire faculty into one room at one time. The faculty thought that was important. And I think the students could use that kind of space as well for some of their larger meetings. And it would be a space that would be subdivided, so you could make lots of small rooms out of it. Multi-function.
Okay, so Joe's bringing that to us today to take a look at, and then he's going to formally bring that and then enlighten me on the process here. We have to turn that in. Turn our level 1 study in.
Tim or Stephen might be able to actually walk us through the steps from here. We'll move right to level 2, which is in coordination, greater coordination with the construction management division.
We got to forward this report to the CMD using the state AI, and then they actually, since the state, we're asking for state money, they actually control the process of the level 2. And they're not real sure how to do that yet. This is the first one, so there could be some time to try to figure it out, but they will guide us through the level 2 process.
The one difference being that typically they will ask, the commission will ask the legislature for funding for level 2 planning. We have that funding and that so that we're not delayed as they work out that process. We'll just funding. It's just we're doing it in partnership with CMD. They're gonna help drive that. And then from there, it goes back to the commission and then on to the legislature for level 3.
Level 3 funding.
So where we are with it, we've got level 1 done, we've got our own funding to get the level 2 done. Okay? Thank you everybody for doing that, so we're not sitting around doing that waiting. So we can march right on with the level 2 and be prepared to do what we have to do to get some state money.
Greg, is Tommy Can's group, are UW aware of all our progress that we're making on this and where they need to jump in?
In fact, part of this process was working with the UW representatives. So and one other thing with facilities, we can talk about this again on the 19th. We're sticking to that timeline. Tim is keeping us on that timeline thing, building forward plan. And so we're jumping right into the level 1 planning for the flex tech building. And the question that has come up is whether or not board members would like to be part of that planning process, or if you trust us and want us to move through that and bring these things to you as we've done.
How long is that going to take?
About the same amount of time as it is
60 days, so it's going to go through. You know, my thought process on that is I think you need to get some input from us up front. Not that we know much details. And maybe you can have an organizing meeting that we can be there. I don't know if anybody wants to spend the time to be on the committee unless you'd like to. But I would like to make sure that all of on your meeting that the board members are invited. I know that I'll be there and I'll put my 2 cents in. Maybe just
Greg, I think that's a good idea because as word about all of this gets out in the community, I think we as board members need to be able to answer questions from the community when they're asked.
Well, and at least be a little bit aware, because who
Right.
knows, maybe we're out talking to somebody and somebody's got some really bright idea and we got at least a handle on where you're headed on. That would be my request. And
Mr. Chair, I suggest maybe you appoint a board liaison to the steering committee that will be steering that level 1.
You can appoint yourself.
Whoever would like to volunteer. But it would be helpful for the steering committee to have board input.
Yeah.
okay, I'll appoint myself because I am extremely interested in it and I think I'll be some good input. But I'll make whatever commitment.
That's a good appointment.
I appointed.
I need more things to do.
I could have yielded the chair.
Okay. Any other, yes, Carol?
Our plan is to have that first meeting within the next 2 weeks. I'm just waiting for 2 meetings to come and then we'll get that scheduled.
Okay. How long do you think it will be?
The meeting itself, an hour.
Very good. Any more questions on the level 1 study? I'm happy that we got her done in time and are marching forward.
If, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, Tim had asked me to come to your next board meeting, I think it's on the 19th. I will be in Washington DC that night. But I want to welcome anyone to contact me if you have any questions going through that document. I leave actually on the 19th, so if you want to contact me before the 19th, ask me any questions, feel free to do so.
Okay.
Okay?
I'll leave that open to board members and you're welcome to call Stephanie if you'd like. Joe's got his number.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Okay, one last item that I did not put on the agenda is, and I sent everybody a copy of the board self-evaluation survey. I told Carol, move comments to each section and run with it. Any other comments?
Carol.
She's taking care of it tomorrow. It will be put up on, what's our plan, to put it up somewhere around, what, 24th?
We were talking about September 21st through the 28th.
Right, would be open.
To answer and
Take
then
the survey.
to have it come to be finished. Marty will tell us when to finish that.
and then it'll come to the board meeting on October 3rd. If you have anything you want to tweak or change, please let me know by tomorrow, at 5 o'clock. I don't know what it's on. I don't think anybody had any questions. So let's see. Oh.
What? Okay. Okay, trustee evaluation, okay, you know what I'm gonna do before I do that? Let me open, just because you have it in the new rules. And I usually do it at regular board meetings, I do it after every topic, but I'll open up the floor to any public comment. If anybody would like to say anything. Going once, going twice? Okay.
I just want to say I was really impressed with the work we did for the next year and just really impressed with that. So thank you guys for putting that together.
Okay, thank you so much. You sure that gets in the newspaper?
She's got deadlines.
Okay. Okay. So anything else anybody wants to chat about? Yes, ma'am.
Trustee candidate orientation. We had talked about it being on Wednesday, October 3rd as part of our study session. I will not be at this meeting on October 3rd, and I would like to take part in that event. So I would like to know if we could change it. And one day I would like to throw out there is Tuesday, September 25th.
But
But I'm sure he would like to.
traditionally, the board trustees have met, well, we've timed it with a board meeting, is that correct?
Or we could,
Which is why we originally chose it.
Yeah. I told you, I'm fine with the 25th.
What day of the week is that?
Tuesday?
At what time?
So no, is there a time you can make it, time you can't?
Well, I'm busy every Tuesday.
It will be on. It would be evening, Bill, probably. So Bill can't be here. You're running much on that.
What are your
Is there any other times?
That's just, any other suggestion I'm open to. That's just one I wanted to throw out. I'm open to any other suggestion. I will not be here on the 19th.
Oh, that's
I need to
right. You're not going to be here in October at all, is
I will be the second meeting in October. I'm missing 2 meetings in a row, one September 19th and one October 3rd. The 19th I'm calling in, but the 3rd I can't. And I wanted to have this, it's just my selfish preference.
You may want to pick 2 nights because the 4 candidates are taking 44 positions.
There's only 7.
You might want to find out. There are only 2 of them can come. Hopefully we can see that happening.
Brenda, we're accommodating you on this. When are you going to be here?
Those are the only 2 meetings that I'm missing. I'm going to be gone the entire week of October 3rd. I will just be gone the night of September. Well, I'll be gone September 18th and 19th. It's work stuff.
No, that's fine. I'm going to be gone the 27th through 1st.
Mr. Chairman, might I suggest that you find out how many can come on the 3rd, and in all due respect to Brenda, if all the candidates could come that night, it would be difficult to try and create another night.
I agree with Bill.
And but if there's 2 or 3 that can't come that night, well then it's silly to have it.
And quite honestly, I would prefer that it be on a
On a board
meeting
night.
night. kind of
That's-
forces them to come to
yeah.
the meeting, and I
No, that's
bump
fine.
you out, but you can still do the work.
Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Oh,
Maybe we should just keep it the 3rd, and I can still help.
You can,
Yeah.
or I could ask for another, one of the things we were working on is having a trustee who's not running, partner with me in the presentation of the orientation, but I could probably ask Tom Kaiser, or Kevin Merrill, or Kevin Trophy to join me in that as well.
So I will be gone instead of.
Okay, so now you're gonna,
Now you have to do.
I will leave. I will be back in town and leaving the plan.
Okay, well, then maybe the three of us could work together in facilitating that
Let's
orientation.
just do that, and then leave it on the 3rd. That
Okay.
makes way more
Great.
sense.
and then, so what time are we gonna start that?
We said 5:30, a little bit early.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Okay, so, Vicki, set her up for the October 3rd, 5:30. Okay, anybody else, anything?
I'll introduce myself.
Oh, you know what, Mike? I was gonna introduce yourself. We're gonna introduce you. Here, I had a little yellow piece of paper here, my friend. We met you down at dinner.
Yes, Michael Wonders, I'm the new student government SGA president for this following year, so I'll be here. I'm contested. The two vice presidents decided to run, the two that ran for vice president decided to run for vice president after I ran, so I don't know, I scared them, I guess, I have no idea, but happy to be here and
Well, you know what?
working with you.
Since you got up and were so forceful in introducing yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself.
There's a story. I'm originally from Wisconsin. Left for service, came back, and got into electricity. I'm actually an electrical contractor. Was one in Arizona. I am one now here also in Wyoming. Did my apprenticeship at Eau Claire, worked for UW Mass, and that's, sorry, UW, but that's the original UW for me. And it's brand, not from. But I'm going to be there. So
There are other.
we will cross paths. Yes, no, exactly. Yeah, left there, moved to Arizona, became a contractor in Arizona, like I said, and the short, very short, unemotional version of it is I met a gal, moved up here, and now I'm in school. So
Well,
the girl part is out. So, but yeah, no. And just going out to school. This is my last year here at LCCC, and I'll be moving on to. I'm either going to be UW, CSU, or ASU. So, electrical engineering.
Well, awful glad you're here and awful glad you're willing to take on that leadership role because it's important.
Yeah.
Thanks, Phil.
Oh, no, it's all for the.
All right, anybody else? Anything else? Anything else somebody wants to discuss?
Mr. Chairman, I suggest, since there's really nothing else to discuss in the study session, that we adjourn it and then reconvene in a few minutes for an executive session to ask a couple of personnel questions.
Okay, and I got a second. Any discussion? We do have a quorum, don't we? Yes. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Very brief.
Okay,
My poor little dog.
I'm taking a vote. Robert's rules, here you go.
There you go. Oh, well, ouch.
Okay, I've got a motion on the floor.
Must think
to
you're
go
at
to
the
executive
convention.
session